Okay, so this is an impeller fan pump slash fan, really, because it's just an air pump at that point, for what it's worth. I mean, all fans are air pumps. It's a whole thing. Anyways, and then water filter tech that I kind of emailed the AWP people for the Tucson, Arizona water filter people. It's a bit long-winded. I hope they actually read the whole email, because like they're gonna do sewage recycling into water because we need it because we're in a fucking desert. So, Anyways, I've already done it in my carbon economy fix and some other stuff for what it's worth. But like, I guess I wanted to talk about it again. So give me a second about the impeller fan pump, which is actually not a terrible turbine, although I have a couple of Jules Thompson turbines that are way better for what it's worth. But I don't label anything, and you kind of do have to go through everything to get it. So there's that. A lot of it's in my creative ideas or concept designs. There's a lot of stuff there. Like, it's more or less in a lot of my playlists. Like, everything's in a playlist, except for a few things, but like, whatever. You know what I mean? Let's see here. So, impeller and fan combo. It's a hybrid combo. So, a good way to put it is, instead of elongating something towards the center and a little bit further on the blade of a fan, I'm going to effectively make an overhang system that's like a scoop. That's like any other impeller, right? But then there are going to be wave guides on the edges of the fan blade. And there's going to be, of course, that overhang that goes to the fan blade that isn't going to be able to have air captured from the scoop to then have it run along the rear, the back part of the fan blade, to then also join with the overhang that's there on the edges of the wingtip for the wave guides that ultimately create an impeller and a fan blade put together as a hybrid system. It'll quiet noise, it'll suck in air, and it'll blow air out faster. It's not necessary to compress anything because that's not what it is. It's not a compressor. If you want to compress it, then you have to put ribbing on the rear of the fan blade and the bottom part of the impeller blade to separate them with a bifurcation to another bifurcation to another bifurcation. Have the wave guides be the final area for the bifurcations and have it join in with the pump or fan blade area that's blowing air as a blower style, but you're going to also put in a teardrop on the fan blade so it's hollow like Swiss cheese. That way, when it splits, it has a way to ultimately still be used as a pressurizational system. Now, if you stack this together, kind of like a cake, and it has to be within the traveling of the impeller and fan blade. So, angled slightly, like 23 to 45 degrees, is just fine for the teardrop with inside the fan blade area. And then the overhang isn't any further than the teardrop spike wave, arrow spike kind of thing, for the rear, past the fan blade area, and then a little shroud. So it'll both suck it in, compress it, and then blow it out really fast. Because then you just have to elongate the width of the fan blade to then curve in and re-accelerate it, and then put a basic laminar flow style teardrop corkscrew, kind of like directed airflow fans from the vortexes that you see, that allow for you to ultimately capture that air and then force it faster at higher velocities that's now smaller than the intake area, although it doesn't really need to be that much smaller, because if you put teardrop stator crisscross areas, it's laminar flowed and then also, surprise, surprise, compressed. It's also more efficient for what it's worth at doing its job, because you can cool off the stator area, because that's a radiator, and you can make the fucking fan blade and impeller designs hollow for the axle. or the hub, depending on what you want to call it, which cools it, along with the shroud for the air intake as well, which means it's getting cooled as it basically goes through the same thing of a ordering as a velocity stack with bifurcation to bifurcation to bifurcation into the impeller, which I already have a version of this, just an FYI, on my YouTube. As a ram air compressor tech. If you didn't know, now you do. You're probably not willing to go through all that because you're a lazy piece of shit scammer that doesn't want to actually start from the beginning and learn along the way. Standard shit, you con people into thinking that you're intelligent, but you're not. And you'll try and do the little scamming reverse aton to you. No, you need to do you. Deflection is what they like to call it. But because it happens to weigh less and it only needs to be around where, ultimately speaking, the pumping action of the hub is, which allows for it, because you have a shroud, to then be sealed to the shroud, you now have the ability to draw it in as an impeller and then fire it out as the fan blade to the rear, where the final little heat exchanger, compressive, laminar flow area is, like I talked about in one of my YouTube videos already. Which effectively means you're a retard that's talking out your ass saying I can't do it. Maybe go be not an idiocracy producing retardation of a person who thinks in cognitive distortions with deflective narcissistic personality problems. Fuck up idiots, for real. So, we're going to move on to, guess what? It works exactly like that. But you know what? On a smaller size of, because, shocker, this is already known by other people too, you can, instead of having a big wing blade size, you can shrink a wing blade size by improving its given design by stacking it and making it so it goes a little bit further by having multiple wings sort of style behind each other, which they've been interested in for a while because wingspans on planes here are massive now to try and carry airplanes to the sky. Less weight equals better performance. That's why they're actually interested in it, although RC Test Flight and others didn't really ever talk about that. Less weight means better fuel performance, even though I could just get the same thing with a simpler design by just increasing wingspan size. Simple doesn't always equal better, especially since manufacturing currently right now just simply isn't set up for it. Which is another reason why behemoths of industry go, no, it won't work, because I'd actually have to pay to change my manufacturing so I could get something better. Standard silicon bullshit chips, or other car manufacturers for the way they design their engines, and the list just keeps going on as capitalism continues to stifle our progress instead of making it better, like the stupid, dumbass, cock-sucking, boot-licking and kissing ass fucks do. Same thing with the bourgeois, I'm smarter, better than you, I'm so much more intelligent, or ass fucks that had the opportunity to go to college and could actually learn in those colleges the way they teach them instead of, other people that can't and don't. Fuck up retardations of supposedly I bought into a system that only really teaches this way, and certainly is insane the amount of debt you're in at the end of it all. But look at my certificate, and I bought in, and everybody knows because of the system I have that the certificate says I at least now know this much on this given area of expertise. It doesn't mean anything at all about how intelligent or how much you really know as a person. It only says maybe and you should. But people often don't continue doing work, and so they can fall out like psychiatrists, therapists, doctors, PhDs, physicists, mechanical engineers, and it just keeps going on and on and on. The standard, you have to keep putting in the work and effort to stay up to date, to continue being that smart at that given subject. Some do, a lot don't. Fuck up retardations of the idiocracy around us, it seems. Capitalist bourgeois systems that seem like they're reasonable, but they're not. They seem like they're not, ultimately speaking, bad to do, but they are. And people will defend it as if they're not basically victim blaming and enabling abusers. With the deflective bullshit they do, which is why I put out the video before this talking physics with cognitive distortions. Maybe you should understand why you should start from the beginning instead of jumping ahead in such a way that showcases your lack of intelligence and knowledge on something. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I'm going to go into the advanced 707, 808 physics class, engineering class, internal combustion engine, that shit. And I'm going to say that can't be done. To a bunch of people that are fully well more versed in it than you are. That are like, this fucking idiot. I have to explain effectively 5 years of work I put into this point. Quickly, so they'll shut the fuck up and just think it's possible. Oh, great. Who let the stupid in? Go do some work, fuck up, retard. Gabagoo. Because Gabagoo is a manipulative retardation of a person that just trolls. That's all they are. They're held back by their belief systems, hindered by their philosophies and religion. They'll adamantly defend garbage like it means something. That's a retard. Then they showcase off that they're intelligent enough to continue doing this in a way that seems like it's logical. But they're literally idiots because they're shooting themselves in their own foot while they dig a hole around them that will collapse on them and eventually kill them. And others that bought into their crap. Idiocracies. You see what I mean? It just gets worse and worse. Eventually you start realizing you're going to have to go through the whole process of learning that you are cognitively distorting a lot of your world around you to fit a given idea that you feel comfortable with in your own mind. Instead of going uncomfortable, being curious enough to challenge your own philosophies and beliefs until you eventually get to where I'm at. This is why you should start from the beginning of my YouTube. Oh, this guy, he knows. I see what you're doing. I am a scammer hacker here. I am the government hacking, NSA. I'm a regular ass individual that's an imbecilic individual that wants to frustratingly keep holding on to my belief of things around me instead of growing the fuck up and maturing. I look at the world full of idiots, babies, lower than children in terms of their maturity. They have handguns and knives, grenades and handguns. You know, logic shit that seems logical except it's really just dangerous. What they're spewing forth. Retarded Republicans, individuals in the democratic process, and more. All online, as if they're meaningful people. It takes a lot to go after all of that shit and realize that you do it to people please too. And even yourself, to coddle that part that wants to be comfortable. Instead of realizing how the world works around you and how shit it is. Because we want to believe in the good in others. But you'd be surprised how much we seemingly feel as though we are good, but we don't take into account how bad we really are, and how much that really will make things worse. Those little missteps, we coddle ourselves into believing they're not as significant as they are. Because, of course, we want to do that. We want to feel better, but you can't do it anymore. It doesn't actually make things better, and it definitely makes things worse. So if you ever really want to actually do that, which it's like, you can't do it. I can do it, and I can keep spinning as hard as I want about this thing, and I'll bring everyone down with me and destroy the entire blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, so another cognitive distortion bullshitterino of a person that shouldn't be able to be allowed in any conversation because they're a bunch of garbage people that are gabagoos, that are going to kill a whole bunch, like any other dictator or megalomaniac cult leader, like Jesus was, or Allah was, or our President of the United States at any given point in time, like Reagan or Nixon. Or could do no wrong, go after the woman that I made suck my dick as my secretary, Clinton. Or any of the other ones that we all fancy that we're not doing it to in the retarded celebrity and influencer culture. Or even the scientific realm. I feel more comfortable about a multiverse. Okay. We have evidence. None, actually. Like, it just gets worse. Like, the more you look into it, it's like you start realizing people just pick and choose what they like. You know what I mean? And eventually you'll get to a problem where it's like, okay, so when we get nitty-gritty detail into quantum mechanics and more, which I got really nitty-gritty into physics talks and more, deeper into my YouTube, you start realizing the mistakes that people believe. Like, I literally see a study come out where it basically goes over, yeah, so the way we set up our detectors and sensors, which I multiple times went over in multiple videos in my YouTube, comes out saying we're not doing it right, and we should actually do that thing that he said before that study came out that we should be doing. I'm like, so idiots are everywhere, it seems like. They want to challenge me on that, huh? I have it saved for what it's worth. It showed up on my Reddit, science alert news thing, whatever, because I'm always following that. But it's like, here's your impeller and fan blade, and you got to set it up right to a bunch of idiots that would genuinely believe that they're smart somehow, instead of finally taking the fucking real pill like fucking Einstein did and says, I don't know certain things, but I know what I know, and I'm unconfident in these things, but for sure I know these things, and all it really managed to do was teach me that I know practically nothing about everything. You know what I mean? It's that sort of situation. where it's a bunch of retards that are overconfident in the Dunning-Kruger area that believe that they're smart somehow, that they're further along in the fucking goddamn graph, some way, some shape or form, instead of it being a bell curve besides their one area that they're good at, and they're like that further along, and all the rest that they are nowhere even on the damn thing. Just fuck up retards. America is full of them, you know? Gabagoos abound everywhere. I can make so much money making fear-mongering statements and other rest of this. I'm not even going to try and be logical about stuff. Garbage. Not even be realistic in the slightest about how to teach people. How much people actually do know, more than they let on. Especially when they're younger. Because like, no, or right? Like, no, you are too far, you know, that stuff. The same thing with it's like, hey, so like this is a way to make something that will possibly explode. I'm not going to tell you all about it, but like, here's some tidbits. You know, here's some life advice for relationships and sex. Just an FYI, you know what I mean? Like, maybe we should teach you how to understand your own feelings and communicate with others and treat them with validation and respect and dignity. When they're younger, then we want them to really be treated as if they are. You know what I mean? I love talking about that. But it's like kids and teens know a lot more than you think. And then we always get all weirded out when it's like, no, they're curious about shit. It's like, why is that bad? Oh, right, the puritanical fucking Christian crap again. And then others that had a massive amount of survivorship bias crap in studies where it's like, no, it's wrong. And I'm like, just because, and I love talking about this, like, they married around this point in time. And I'm like, they married around that point in time. They weren't having sex or anything before that. Then it's like, yeah, but that kind of got rid of the whole, like, LGBTQIA plus arrangement because they were really allowed to marry and they were very illegal. Not to mention, just because a certain percentage did certain things, like, oh, I don't know, 10 to 15% of the whole rainbow community there, we should discount them as being valid. It's like someone eventually took a stand once the HIV started progressing everywhere. In the 90s. I guess we're going to have to fucking treat this like it's there, guys. Ah! So it's irrelevant what that fucking shit says, effectively. It's just people are uncomfortable and cognitively distort and blame and shame and all the rest of it for the cognitive dissonance and the survivorship bias, and it needs to fit my worldview and philosophy, and I don't like, and blah, blah, blah. Just like it does for, what is this again? A lot of science and engineering and physics. But I'm smart! You're smart? You're smart, huh? You're smart? This guy's a smarty. This is just smart. We're going to follow this guy that'll coddle us and patronize us and tell us all the words we want to hear. This is that guy. That's the guy. Yeah, we're going to fucking listen to that fucking fuck-up retard gabagoos manipulating us into going into... What is this again? Death and destruction to all of us? The lack of progress? The definite, consistent, we're going to go a little further, but then we actually just lost a lot. It's like the absolute zero problem. You know what I mean? Or it's like, I'm going to shine a light. I'm going to put some energy in there. Boom! Ah! Holy shit, I'm lower energy now. What the fuck was that? You bastards! Our government's destroying itself. Online culture is getting stupid as fuck. We aren't fucking allowing people to make mistakes and grow and learn. Or giving perspectives outside of only ours, which are so much better than yours. I'm a self-aware person, I say, but definitely aren't self-aware in the slightest about how I perceive the world around me and what could possibly be a solution and or a difference of opinion. I like looking at this for like the Penguin Zero Moist Critical situation on Boogie. But it's like I was gonna think about this later time, but it's like, look at this motherfucker. He's like, no, he's entitled, and it's like he's a little entitled, but I can kind of get where he's coming from when it comes down to like the low self-esteem and self-worth that he's got going on right now, where it turns into like, hey, so what's wrong with me as a person? It's not just me and my fame that makes me valuable. I should be allowed to have a woman that I find sexually attractive, and I get to fuck, and that treats me well. What's wrong with me having that? But the way he said it was really bad. Because it's like, it totally comes across as if he's entitled to them. But it's like, here's certain kinks. Go into these certain kink BDSM areas and you will find women like that. Boogie, you know what I mean? Like, maybe you should try that instead of fucking paying for effectively parasitic women that will prey upon men and women like you, people like that. Because, like, you have low self-worth, self-esteem, confidence, validation, all of that goes hand in hand. And it's like, that's why he's given up. It's like, no, I can never get further. I'm a big fat. I'm going to die soon. But it's like, these are genuine concerns, but everybody just goes with Penguin Zero and Moist Critical. Like, he's a fucking asshole. I'm sure there's other things, but it's like the same fucking problem because it's like, internally, I'm telling myself that already. And then Boogie gets to hear it from people that are seemingly intelligent motherfuckers that are not. Moist is a bully who's good at bullying others with seeming logic, but it only uses the comfort of the society's perspective that wants to go after types of perspectives. He's certainly no therapist, but man, will that crowd and that court really ruin people. And he has mountains of followers. Somehow that fucker. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I know why. Because they like people telling them what they want to hear. Obviously. They don't want to go to a therapist or someone else in their life that's not going to fucking tell them something that they don't want to, you know what I mean? Like that. Like they tell them something they don't want to hear, or they'll fucking go to someone that will. It's a bunch of retards. And then the crowd's going to control them because it's like, I'm not going to be able to fucking say anything other than what they want to hear because, of course, then I get controversially canceled. You know what I mean? Granted, it's like, it's always seemingly gray to them, but it's really not. Because it's like, obviously, I don't think with more perspective. And I'm definitely self-aware, guys. And, I made a little oopsie as if it wasn't as severe as it is. Like, if you take a look at Boogie, right? Doing that, the dude's crying for help. Like, the guy has no fucking, like, belief of himself or the world around him. He's saying that he's dead. He's effectively unable to kill himself, so he's trying to do it a different way in the self-sabotaging behavior, which is like any other junkie that's gotten to a point, which we don't use the word junkie, we call them substance abuse people, but I'm not your therapist, and I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. You're addicted to a substance. And you feel as though you should die because the world believes that you're worthless, and you're only going to get confirmation of that from a bunch of retardation, gabagoo idiots who are Christian or don't think about it as if they had these issues and don't place in the disability or the very real harm that can definitely occur and become very difficult from that trauma and more that they experience to ever come back and land on their feet and do something. He's literally a story. I can see like a perfect example of Boogie of the entire crowd. I could write a PhD thesis in psychology and anthropological study and more on how fucking retarded our society is. And how big glory is cult leaders of the influencer and more culture happen to ruin people that don't fit their narrative and ideological, philosophical bullshit, you know? That they weren't even aware that they got trained into believing by a bunch of peer people around them as they grew up in elementary, middle school, and high school and college and online that taught them to think and behave like that. Look how fucking stupid these dumbasses are. You can clearly tell they never did any work on themselves. They certainly never fucking challenged themselves. They definitely didn't do therapy well. And they certainly don't know much about anything going on around them in the world. But man, do they like to act like they do. And that's the big issue after a while. It's like you suddenly realize it's like, every fucking post I see, look at all the comments. Oh, what do you know? It's the same thing. Every fucking post I see on YouTube. Oh, what do you know? Yep, it's displaying itself again. Every fucking goddamn time I go anywhere. Oh, what do you know? It's everywhere. Every fucking news story about any politician. What do you know? Same thing. Every fucking judgment by the jury that's so good. Oh, what do you know? Same problem. Every fucking goddamn stupid judge. Oh, what do you know? Same thing. All the laws. Oh, what do you know? Same problem. What do you know with the lawyers? Same problem. Physics, science, a whole STEAM field. Because arithmetic and, more is in there. Oh, what do you know? Same issue. Every fucking goddamn corporation I look at, same problem. Every management style. Oh, what do you know? Again. It just goes on and on and on. It's like, how do you deal with it? You don't. You put up with it. You don't deal with it. You just put up with it because you know you can't change everyone. It's literally what you got. Like, you try and cope, manage, and focus on passions and pursuits that you like and love, and that's all you get. I mean it. You can't do jack shit about anything else. Most of them are the majority. And they're controlled by a bunch of majority retards, too, that sound like they're smart. You know what I mean? Because, like, you sound like you're smart. I am now defensive. Gee, I wonder why you'd be defensive. Why you would deflect. You're used to coddling yourself. That's pretty normal. But it's like, no, it's you! It's you! I'm listening to this and I can just turn it off and fucking believe whatever I want to believe about you. Like, wow, look at the child over there. That's immature. They're a fucking grown-ass adult, older than me, most likely. Like, literally that. But it's like, that's a scammer move. You know what I mean? That's a hacker move. That's a social engineering little fucking marketing, con job that the politicians and influencers do. No, you! Look at them everywhere. But it's like, I wanted to talk about the water filter tech, because it's like, well, that's probably what you're going to get for people that are emailing you, and most likely what you're also going to get for the idiot retards that think they know things about the fucking filter tech. The people that, for the stuff that I've talked about in that email, don't want you to actually make as much money as you're definitely going to be able to make, because it will be so efficient and produce enough hydrocarbons that you'll be getting paid to take sewage and garbage in, that you essentially make money off of making electricity. And it really gets into the coffers of people that pay a lot of money to make oil turn into gas and more for you. Which, by the way, it is actually that efficient, just as an FYI. But then I know that. others don't, and I have to explain it to them. You know what I mean? So that's why the water filter tech is here. So it's like, all right, so let's take the fact that here in Arizona, they have these ginormous, massive fucking pots, effectively, like, that get filtered out, and then they try and pump it down into the ground, right? So they already have the ground, it's hot, whatever, I don't really care too much, but then that filters out the water, and then they have to filter it again. And we have a bunch of solar, right? But it's like, you don't need to do any of that, for what it's worth, if you know what you're doing. Like, if you can cover it up, you can suck out the vast majority of hydrogen and methane and natural gas that's produced, but we're gonna hold off on that. Right, we're going to use that heat and pressure as it undergoes biological processes with the introduction, because there's lower amounts of oxygen in that you can take out, just by the way. And with the plastics and garbage, organic and non-organic matter, you can use the pressure that you have from ginormously huge, oh my god, these are big pots, to produce, with the heat that undergoes the whole biological processes, with the right bacteria added in at the right times, a breakdown into more natural gases and helpful kerosenes, diesels, gases, liquid gas, more, right? Like that, right? But we're not really done, because, of course, we're not going to get full extraction that way. So it's like, we're going to allow for a little bit of pressure at the bottom, and then we need to separate it with the correct, which is just density. If you don't know anything about the refinement process of distilleries or any refinery, you know that different things have different densities, because you're not stupid, hopefully. Which then turn it into, well, guess what? That means I can remove a lot of that salt and remove a lot of different minerals and water-soluble and fat-soluble vitamins and chemicals. Now, that's vibrational, light-based, pressure density designs, which we already have plenty of, truthfully, because we already have centrifugal and pressure-based filtrations, along with charge field separations as well. So, as a result, that means I can introduce the right bacteria, go through a molding process, which, by the way, there are quite a few different molds that produce more sugar than you think, and their biology, their cells. Same thing with fungus, too. And some of them are symbiotic to each other. If you didn't know, now you know. Now, as a result of them being in a hot environment, my ass, you just need it hot enough to be a bioreacting, like, petri dish. Since you already have these ginormous vats and pots of this shit, obviously you can do it, especially since you have the Arizona heat here to pump around. So idiot retard says, it can't be. I go, you're a retard and an idiot, shut up. You're in a more advanced class, you should be quiet. Which it's like, let me give you the exact bacterium, the genus species, why don't you just go to the fucking ASU or any of the other colleges, or look it up your fucking self? What's wrong with you? Fuck up, retard, idiot. Shut up. Literally that. So I'm going to move off, because now we get into organic and synthetic chemistry processes that use biological processes to improve our efficiencies. Because it's going to take a while to fucking pump it down. Now we don't have to do that. We just have to collect a decent amount, introduce it at the right times. Then once we have the right fungus, which is basically like any distillery yeast, we can break down a lot more of those sugars into ethanols. We're going to also be able to make methanols and more during this. So we get lots of different types of liquid fuels. And fats, by the way, shocker, can go into certain fuels to get, shocker again, diesels. Now, once we push it through with the amount of weight that's above them, we can then get hydrothermal pyrolysis, making a lot more of our gases, hydrocarbon, natural gases, and more. We're going to heat it up using solar, of course, and then we have the basic filtration using buoyancy. So we're going to use solar to heat up water, and then that will very significantly break down the vast majority of either forever chemicals or any medicines and any other bacteria, of course, because it's really quite hot and really quite supercritical, that steam. Which will then go through a turbine, which can then go through, there's this stuff called thermal photovoltaic, thermoelectric, and piezoelectric. So piezoelectric is mechanical stress and strain, which is 90% efficient at converting any of that into electricity. Not hydrothermal interrupter. Thermoelectric and thermal photovoltaic are two different types of things, but they can be combined along with piezoelectrics because you have to cool it anyways. Steam is quite hot when it's supercritical, but it's really more about pressure. Use solar to ultimately allow for buoyancy to occur and a consistent pumping action of when you introduce steam and the back pressure of the steam turbine up in the air for the water tower you have, which allows for steam to get hot enough for thermal photovoltaic and thermoelectric generating material, two of which are different than you think. One's 40%, another's like 9 to 15. Pretty good though, because for what it's worth, a piezoelectric introduction to that shroud, because you have to cool it a little, is going to be a good thing. Not to mention the fact that you can make the tube after that turbine be what is essentially going to lead into a big, huge, buoyant reservoir up at top, which is a literal radiator. Then you only need to make it out of a Joule-Thomson acoustic-sized tubes to work with your Stirling vacuum on one side, heat on another, to allow for, you guessed it, cooling to be increased. Condensing steam, and because it's made out of piezoelectrics, and a good little bit of linear generation, and presto changeo, what do you get? Electricity generated from your waste heat generator, idiot, fucktard, retard. Interrupter, douche face. Then we have a turbine, because it's a water battery, because you have a water tower, and it's not fully done yet, because guess what? You still have to filter and treat the water a little. What does that give you? Pressure at the top that has now water pressure going into a turbine as a water battery, because it's gravitational potential energy to actual energy, that you can then use that pressure to help filter it. Simple shit. Idiot fuck up retards. Well, here's another little tidbit for you, because if I put piezoelectrics around underground, these tubes for our water to go into, because it's a little hotter, and we're going to cool it a little bit using the ground as a cooler, because it's colder if you get to the right depth, you then get this thing called thermal expansion and contraction, which gives us, you guessed it, energy fuck up retard. Which tells us I can make a lot more electricity. It cheapens the shit out of the amount of filtration process. And I for sure now have a bunch of useful fertilizer at the end, even though I got rid of a lot of the nitrogen. And a decent amount of carbon, there's still a decent amount that's still left in there. And I removed all the bad stuff that you don't want in your fertilizer anyways. And guess what? You also have minerals and vitamins that you can now put into it. And then send it off for wherever it is It's needed because it's going to have to go through a compost process anyways, fuck up retard. I'm throwing shit at the wall that doesn't make any sense. He's a dumbass. That's what this really looks like. Actually, no, all of those things are real and you could do that. Did I hit one of you doing the fuck up retardation person thing? Instead of throwing shit at the wall, this is a very real design. It's a business move. I could genuinely, if I could ever get investors, if I ever get myself to have a presentation, numbers and all that, which of course I can't. I'm disabled as fuck. Like literally, I can't get my fucking shit together to even like edit. I don't even have a fucking computer to edit, but it wouldn't matter if I got a computer. I literally just can't do it. I need people to help me, and I certainly don't have money for that either. So, all of what your little cognitive distortion garbage fest is no, I say he can, because my uncomfortable with smart guy having these disabilities that really make it insanely difficult for him to be successful, but not us, mean that I don't like that, and I would say... So, the call is done. That's just going to go out there. But it's like, alright, so essentially I'm invalidating the amount of work that you can do and how impossible it really is for you to do that other work that would be required for you to be successful in everyday life. And the fact that you don't have money at all coming in, and you certainly can't get yourself to try and sell anything, especially when you have no money coming in, and what would you really be able to sell? And it just goes on until you eventually realize it's like whatever the fuck it is that I believe I could do in your situation isn't being changed to, oh, I'm not this person. I'm comparing and contrasting this person to me, and that means I can't actually do, if I were to do that properly, where I'd make myself this person that has these issues and disabilities, someone that can actually do that at all, without essentially a lot of people and a lot of money to make that work. So if I move on, because it's like, alright, I'll tell you the Q value of your energy, because solar is what it is, but we're extracting using solar and pressure from, of course, gravity, because of the mass of the sewage and garbage you're treating. Alongside of the chemical thermal reactionary energy here that helps the process along with a little bit of electricity added into a very efficient process that's more than 90% efficient. And then the battery now that you have as potential energy for hydrocarbons and water storage allows for you to get more than what you put in to make this water filtration happen. Which is another reason why I was like, I don't think you maybe grasp this, but of course the people that say it can't be done all have money in gas refinement companies, and they are being subsidized by those individuals. Right now, we already have hydrothermal processes that are pyrolysis that don't do what I'm doing. But they're not taking into account massive scales that massively change pressures, heats, and outright potentials using other catalysts together to make this work. Which essentially says, you're an idiot, you should really shut the fuck up, and you have a massive incentive to not do it because you'll lose money. Meanwhile, if you're a water treatment or garbage collection service, I'm getting paid to literally make money off of what I'm being paid to remove. I would absolutely do this. Why wouldn't I do this? Which is another reason why I'm like, so retards that are gabagoos, for sure, because they're willing to destroy others for short gains, confuse them into believing it's logical, that they want to not do something because we need to research and develop when we already have it. We need to prove when we've already proved it. I mean, I'm not even going to get into the whole, we have a humidity for that steam as it's getting collected that can absolutely be used as an increase to the electricity we gain. Because that's another few studies too that show off that we have a way to turn humid here, not humid there, as like effectively the equivalent of an iron redox flow type situation. And especially when you have salt, which is its own battery, because we have sodium ion batteries, just as an FYI retards, along with the acids that are involved, other retards. That mean we can fully get a lot more extracted than your thought process of being, oh, it's no way it's 90%. No, it is, retards, it is. The catalysts, the pressure, all of it as a one-pot system, retards, gabagoos, gives us 100% more than you think we're getting. It's a confirmed, no matter what, you're going to get more than what you thought you can get as efficiency. And then I can still extract more out of it later. You gabagoo retard. So my Q value energy is actually something that is higher than 100%. The problem is it's not really. Okay, I'm using regular physics processes to effectively get potential energy made that I can extract later, while making the process of doing the thing very efficient and make energy during that. So that way I get very close to, for the amount of energy I have to put in to do it, the amount of energy I get during doing it, and then the potential energy now is higher. That's what the Q value energy is. I can get even further because of the buoyancy and the pressure differences, a higher amount of energy with the piezoelectrics and more than it takes to do the damn thing in the first place. So that's another reason why gabagoo retards should shut the fuck up, that have incentives to no longer progress and innovate. Get it? Fuck ups. Yeah. Not to mention, it's like, okay, so you're willing to tear apart some things, okay, to do this. What if you decided to allow for the pumping system and the, of course, because you're going to need it. Already we have IR admittance devices. Not like, oh, they're going to emit IR because we're forcing electricity through, but because we're trying to bleed off heat as IR and essentially allow for it to get really, really cold after enough of a IR amount is released, and changing of pressure values has occurred to allow for a condensing system along with a condensing system with the dehumidifying, kind of like there's this compound that's like a goop effectively, and then when they squeeze it they get out, which, shocker, condensing means things squeeze to get out more water from our air. We can put it around the city and we can change some of our roads, which some of them need to be repaired anyways, and we're going to need to do some of that for this to begin with, along with the buildings and so on, that allow for us to collectively get more water from our air simply just using light at night that we don't normally see, which is just pointed up at the sky because it's infrared, and yes, infrared cooling is real, which, because it already is hot, that's a thermal siphon effect as it goes really high up, and then we allow for it to infraredly emit and get condensed and condensed and condensed until eventually it gets cold enough to then do this, to collect water from the air as a condenser water dehumidifier along with standard goop, which I get it, goop is not really what it is. It's an actual compound. I would love to tell you what it is, but of course I don't remember literally all things all the time. Shut up. Go look it up. Robert Murray Smith did a whole thing about it on YouTube, going over dehumidifying solutions. Turns out if you add a little bit of charge differences, humid here, less humid there, it acts like a thermal siphony pump where there's a reverse osmosis. It's drier here, it's more humid here, and then it gets condensed and collected. And you add in the compound here, it allows for a greater increase in efficiency at extracting water from the air. It also happens to cool your whole city doing that. The heat island effect is lessened because the sidewalks and streets are colder faster at night now, and the heat's being used to actually make more cold occur. It's just the correctly lowered pressure fluid, and since you have to pump things around anyways, which would be your sewage, so it can do this, you'd be able to get that effect at night. And still have the compound itself still get water during the day. And still be cooled enough to collect it much more efficiently. So effectively, you're an idiot for not doing it, in my mind. That's the whole point. It's like, no, you could cool your entire city instead of geoengineering. You're just cooling it like normal. It already does infrared emittance, your city, you fuck-ups. Just do it better. Why not make work for you happen? It's work energy types of things. You make a lot more water. You make a lot more electricity. And because, remember the cooling condensing part? And heating and humidity, not just with the humidity thing. Piezoelectrics get involved, heating and squeezing is occurring. Electricity during water collection makes it more efficient. You're not going to get, really, technically speaking, as much as you might expect, because you do have to pump it around, not pop it. You have to pump it around, right? But it drastically reduces its overall amount of energy that you need to do everything, which makes it far more efficient now. You'd be a fool not to do it. You're going to invest in the money to do it, you might as well invest in the money to do it right. The first time, because you already know how difficult it is to change it later when you do it wrong and you have to constantly keep repairing it later. It's a fucking sabotage for your fucking long run stuff if you don't do it right. Don't be a boogie. Be a xenon. Try to think of solutions the best you can. I really don't have opportunities like people think, and I really honestly have a really hard time getting outside, and I don't have money. I don't have any of the little certificates they need to be able to get a job like that. I don't have any of the whatever experiences they want me to have to be able to get that job. I don't have people believing in me because I have to have those challenging retardations of gabagoo fucktards that think that they're smart and intelligent. That will say one thing or another about me and are unwilling to work with me and understand that their compare and contrast of self to me is already starting off incorrectly. I have a disability that makes it very difficult for me to do these things. I would absolutely take the solutions I could to be able to do the things that I'm talking about and run businesses and be able to actually genuinely produce these amazing concepts and invention ideas I have to make it so our world is more efficient, cleaner, and safer for everyone. But of course I don't have that ability. So a bunch of idiot fuck-ups will say one thing or another. They'll believe just like the last 2 fucking times, actually 3 times or whatever it was, because I've already applied for SSI and SSDI in the past before I've already gone through. This is my last time was 5 fucking mental health hospital stays, 2 of which I got in court order treatment. But they don't take that into consideration for some fucked up reason. They only go back a year. I've done every medication I've ever been offered. I've done so much therapy for over a decade. I've done alternative treatments. I've put that on my function report. I've done the hallucinogens. I've done the fucking, other therapies. Oh my god, man. I've done every therapy you've got to give me. I've done outpatient galore. Every antipsychotic, every fucking everything. It's like 3 to 5 of them in every category outright. I've gone from very basic initials to all the way to the most extremes. I never wanted to get into benzodiazepines because I knew how addictive and deadly they were. I never wanted to get into I got into tricyclics and tryptamines, by the way, or amtriptylines or whatever it is, right? And I even did the tetracyclics. I've even done the mood stabilizers. I've done them all, motherfucker. They don't work. I'm a treatment resistant, which apparently never gets fucking factored in, but it sounds like because I'm in this one little comfortable, I can record this situation, it seems like I'm functional, but I'm not. Meanwhile, a judge ain't gonna fucking consider it, neither is the stupid retardation of a person who's considering how disabled I am. Fuck up retards. You know what I mean? Standard idiotic individuals that believe the compare and contrast of what my situation and this belief of what I believe, do you know how not able Voc Rehab is to give you those resources? There's no one that you can have, there's no working a job. I can't fucking even stop myself from screaming and yelling at people. I'll call them right to their face a fucking retard. I've done it before. I'll do even worse, too, because I can barely fucking remember. I can't even get myself to keep myself up to date on the shit I'm supposed to do every day around the house, or apartment that I'm in. Not a house. It's an apartment. But I can't even get my shit together to do that. And you're like, no, you could somehow get to a regular schedule every day, do the things you're supposed to. They're like, no, there's a death to hell. That's what I imagine they would do. Because they're like the fucking, Sarah Palin or some other idiot fuck up retard Republican that decided to say shit like that. Or I think it was Trump too. Yeah, Trump decided to try to do that too. I am laughing, but it's not funny because it's genuinely they think that's acceptable. But it's really, you're the retard ones. You're the retard ones. You really are the retarded ones. If you act like that, you might as well be more unintelligent and have a genuine mental incapacity to be a part of our fucking society. You shouldn't be at all someone that any way, shape, or form evaluates people. Your doctors, your nurses, your politicians, your evaluators, your programs run by the government, your representatives. You're a bunch of fuck-ups that run our society. You have money for no fucking reason, and you get to do opportunities that I could never have because of the amount of trauma and the lack of money I've always gotten. I mean, I've been abused by my fucking family and more well more than you've ever had to deal with, most likely. Or you're just a different person that didn't get as hurt as much as I was. Not to mention, it's like some of you can legitimately go to war and come back and still function well enough. And I could never do that. I don't think you get it. You're actual, literal trash that runs shit around us. Like, that's how bad that is. People look up to you as if you're meaningful, worthwhile people when you're not. You're worth nothing. The world's better off with you dead. You know how much time it takes to get people like your dumbass, defensive, garbage, shithead people to change? Decades. If not, you didn't and you died still doing it. Which is why you're a gabagoo, because you really won't change. You'll just pretend to change, and you'll still be that fuck-up retard gabagoo that'll drag everyone else down. I hate you. I hope you're all dead. In the future somehow. Fuck you. Have a good one. Like and subscribe. Bye.